2000, you graduate from Appalachian State, and I don't know how much of this story is urban legend over time or how much of it is legitimate, but you have at least been quoted as saying that you got the night you graduated, you sat there and said, "I don't know what I'm going to do with my life now." Is that legit, or is that just quality storytelling?
No, very true, Jeff. A lot happened that spring and early summer after my senior year. I went to Appalachian State because of Houston Fancher and Buzz Peterson, and wanted to learn under that Carolina way that Coach Peterson had grown up in, playing with Dean Smith. And I always thought about just wanting to get into the business side of sports. And that was part of the draw to Coach Peterson and Appalachian State and connections to Nike and so forth.
Was that the marketing degree where that was coming in?
Correct. So marketing degree, great business school there. But as I really thought about things in the spring of my senior year after our season, really the most influential people in my life outside of my parents had been my coaches, just all the way growing up. And I really enjoyed the behind the scenes aspect of coaching, the preparation, and wanted to give it a shot. And so my initial plan was to start off as a graduate assistant there at Appalachian State. Well, as I mentioned, a lot happened that summer. Unfortunately, I was packing my bags. I had my car loaded and I was leaving to travel to the University of Tennessee to work a camp. And one of my teammates, who was going to be a rising senior, passed away in a drowning accident. That would have been June 9th of 2000. Really changed a lot for me from a perspective standpoint on life. Then later that summer, Buzz Peterson, the coach I played for, got the job at Tulsa, left to take the Tulsa job. And Houston Fancher, who was associate head coach, was promoted to head coach there. So that opened up some opportunities. And this was back in the day of I think it was called restricted earnings position. In the third assistant spot back in 2000, you couldn't recruit off campus. You were a part-time position. And so I think the pay was somewhere between 12 to 17,000. So it really limited the pool, whereas today, a third assistant in an SEC, average salary is probably $300,000. So it limited Coach Fancher's pool, and it enabled me to get an opportunity, right out of college at age 22 to have a Division I assistant coaching position there at Appalachian State right off the bat. So I was just really lucky and fortunate to get an opportunity like that.
There's a lot of coulda, shoulda, woulda in this question, but if Appalachian State decides to go in another direction and doesn't hire Houston Fancher, are we talking today? I mean, is that really that much of a fork in the road moment? Maybe have a happy accident, or do you think you find your way to it somehow?
I don't know. A great question. And me from over the years, I hate dealing in hypotheticals. But
play along.
You never know. I mean, it's just I was very lucky. I mean, if that didn't happen, do I go out to Tulsa with Coach Peterson in some sort of graduate assistant position? Who knows? I mean, that's one of the challenging things I think of coaching, Jeff. You can follow the playbook and work as hard as you want and establish a resume. At the end of the day, to get jobs, you need someone to select you. And whether that's a head coach hiring you as an assistant or an AD and a president hiring you as a head coach, and it's not necessarily the best resume or quote most qualified who gets those jobs. So, I was just really fortunate that Coach Fancher took a chance on me at 22 years of age. Because I failed a lot early in my career, and he gave me the opportunity to learn and really mentored me through a lot of those failures to hopefully grow and improve as a coach.
I was 23 years old. My first TV job paid 17,000, which at that point in my life was the most I'd ever made in a year, and I thought was a lot of money until I think probably the second paycheck when I realized exactly how little I was going to get. So you in that 12,000, I at least had health benefits. You didn't have health benefits there that first year. Um, is there anybody in your ear going, mom and dad, somebody going, is there just almost just worried for you? Is like, can you make it? Can you do this? Is there not a better path for you so you can go have a more stable life?
No, I was really lucky there, Jeff, that my parents and the people around me always encouraged me to follow my dreams and pursue the field that I was passionate about. So I was lucky in that regard. They had a lot of support, and that was back in the day too when camps were so big,
Yeah.
and you were able to make some additional income through the camp scene in the summers. But no, I was very fortunate to have great support to pursue my dreams.
How was that first year with Houston there? I mean, was it just in terms of, was this just like you're a duck to water? I mean, you're like, oh my God, this is, yeah, I'm not making any money, but I don't even care. This is the greatest job in the whole world, and you knew it right out of the jump.
It was awesome. Just an incredible learning experience. There was a lot of adversity. We were coming off my senior year's team where we really played 6 or 7 guys. 3 of us graduated that year. I mentioned Rufus Leach tragically passing away. And then we had 2 other players that played a major role in that team that were moved on from the program. So it was really a starting over from scratch opportunity. I tell people all the time, I think that year I might have been, I say very humbly, the hardest working coach in the country. But I think I was probably the worst coach in the country too at the same time. I didn't really understand what it was all about as far as relationships and the time investment in your current players, that it wasn't just all about recruiting and scouting and all of those things. So I failed a lot early in my time and learned a lot from those experiences.
I think I heard someone describe it once, sort of bluntly, that you know motivation is great, but education is more important, because if you motivate an idiot, you just have a motivated idiot at the end of the day. Who did you, and obviously some self-awareness there that you were trying to find your way, but uh, who were you able to lean on in terms of just trying to learn about the best practices for what you're doing? I mean, Houston's got his own things he's trying to get done. I mean, was he kind of your guy, or was there somebody else in the program there that you were able to kind of lean on?
I think, Jeff, it started with Coach Fancher. He gave me a lot of responsibility and allowed me to fail and learn. But then he also followed up to help me grow as a coach. And he just had unbelievable relationships with people. And so I was able to see that modeled on a daily basis and learn from that. And then the other 2 assistant coaches that I was working with were veteran coaches who had a lot of success, Lavelle Hall and Joel Haskins, and they went above and beyond the call of duty to really show me the way, show me how their recruiting processes worked, what they did from an individual workout standpoint with their players, all of those things. They were really good to me in showing me what being a college basketball coach should be all about.
1 year there, and then you go to Tennessee, old Rocky Top with Buzz Peterson as a whatever grad assistant, administrative assistant, or whatever the title was there for that. But making a leap, obviously, in level of play, but just in level of program as well. What was that experience for a wide-eyed young pup like going into there? And basically going home too, going home.
That was a big part of it. It was 20 minutes from home. Coach Peterson had great success in his 1 year at Tulsa and goes on to Tennessee. and I had the opportunity to go there as a graduate assistant. And, just to see things in the SEC, to see things done at the highest level. It's one of my regrets. I didn't get to finish my master's degree, but getting to start that opportunity there was really good for me. And you have to remember back then, as I said earlier, the third assistant, you couldn't recruit, couldn't go off campus. It was really a limited role. And then as that rule got changed to where the third assistant was now going to be a full-time coach, could go recruiting off campus and all those things. When I had the opportunity to go back to Appalachian State, the thought process was I could stay here at Tennessee and finish this master's degree, and I would kill for an opportunity like that coming out of here with my master's. So here the opportunity presented itself. I needed to take advantage of it. And so it was a short stay there, but it was really a good experience for me.
To go then back to App State, where you end up being there for 7 years. How different was it? You play there, you get that 1 year, but then to leave and to come back. Was your impression of the place different? Was your impression of your skill set different? Did people look at you differently? That maybe you had a new coat of paint rather when you came back there to sort of start that new step in your journey?
It was so long ago, Jeff. I really don't even remember. But it was a place for me.
I love when you start smiling when I ask questions like that, where you're like, I'm
trying to think of a good answer for you, but I have no idea. But it was a place where I was comfortable because I had gone to school there. I knew the administration. I knew the great academic people they had there and student services. So it was a place of comfort for me. And I think it enabled me to really learn and grow under Coach Fancher in my time there.
When you put 7 years in, and at the end, Coach Fancher steps down after the 2009 season, and ultimately, life is a flat circle, I guess, as Buzz Peterson comes back. But at the same time, did you have any idea that, looking back at that, when Coach Fancher decides to step down, do you know that's coming? I mean, are you caught off guard by that? And what was your level of maybe uncertainty professionally that, hey, here's this, I've been home, I've been in a place for 7 years, I'm comfortable and whatever, and now, maybe the earth's getting a little wobbly underneath me.
Yeah, I was definitely caught off guard. And I didn't know the business that well at the time, but I want to say we were coming off, a year in which we struggled. But even that said, it was I think the winningest 3-year period in the program history. So I was surprised, and it led to a lot of uncertainty because it was a long process that App State went through that spring before Coach Peterson was hired. So it was really the first major adversity I'd faced in the coaching profession, not knowing what was next for me at that stage.
Did you, and you're 30, I guess, or so around that time, is there, and whether it's at App State or maybe somewhere else, was there any inkling in your gut that maybe I can get this job, maybe I can get the head job here, or did you not necessarily feel like you were ready at that point?
No, I was definitely intrigued by that opportunity. I don't want this to come off the wrong way. I love Appalachian State.
Mm-hmm.
That was my dream, was to coach there. But it wasn't in the cards for that to happen at that time. And, when it didn't happen, it really was a good thing for me. And now looking back, at the time, I was devastated. I wanted the opportunity to coach it in my alma mater and those things. But, it helped me really, I think, reflect back on why I was in coaching. I never got into coaching to make a certain salary or to be able to say I have this title. I think it helped me really recenter my focus on you're in coaching to make an impact on people and to help your players grow, not only and become the best player they can be, but to take advantage of the opportunity to get a degree from the university you work for, to grow as a leader, to put yourself in a position to not only get an opportunity when you leave college, but to be prepared to be successful in those opportunities. And I think things not necessarily working out the way I might have wished or hoped for there ended up being the best thing to ever happen to me, because it helped me put my focus back to where it needed to be as a coach.
When did the book reading and whether it's the motivational or self-help or coaching biographies or whatever, when did that become a priority for you?
Yeah, it's one of the best steps I ever took, and it really helped me really improve as hopefully not just a coach, but as a leader. I was probably 25 and really had never been into reading at all. Hated it with a passion, to be honest with you. But I just challenged myself one year. I said, I'm going to read on average a book a week for a year. I'm going to get 52 books done this year. And, now some of them were, 100 pages, double spaced, 2-page chapters and so forth. But I wanted to get that done, and still old school. I like to highlight in the book, and I know we have all these tools and books on audio and tablets and all that. I still like the hard copy of the book to make my notes in there. And it was good for me because there's so many resources out there to improve as the coach or whatever your field might be. Nowadays with YouTube and the access to all the technology and different coaching DVDs and leadership books and so forth. It was a step in the right direction for me, and I think it really helped me get a better understanding for what I wanted my coaching style to be. As you go through it, and this, I guess, include my playing years. This will be season number 27 for me now in college basketball. You're always trying to develop and fine tune your own philosophy. So I just enjoy stealing things from different books or different coaches. You reflect back on the things you liked from the coaches you worked for, maybe some of the things you didn't like, and choose not to incorporate those. So it helped me start to develop my own philosophy for what I wanted my program to look like if I was ever fortunate enough to get an opportunity.
Coach Fancher leaves, Coach Peterson comes back. You call him, or does he call you to stick around there at App State?
Well, it's crazy. It was such a long interim period. I was the interim head coach for, I think it was almost 2 months. And so, he wasn't required to keep me, but fortunately I'd played for him, and Coach Peterson gave me the opportunity to stay with him for his 1 year there at Appalachian State. It ended up being a great year. We had a player, Donald Sims, one of my all-time favorites, that we recruited from Fork Union Military Academy. Really, we didn't beat anybody out for him. People told us, hey, you should have been recruiting the other guard off the team and this and that. But you trust that evaluation. And every time I went up there to Fork Union to watch him, he was always in the gym. Lunch break, he's in the gym. First to practice, last to leave. Had great appreciation for being recruited. And I learned a lot about recruiting from that process with Donald Sims. He's the all-time leading scorer in the history of Appalachian State basketball. But some of those things that you can't measure in the recruiting rankings, heart, desire, coachability, all those things, passion, you got to factor those things in to the recruiting process that you go through. So it was a privilege to get to coach him another year there. And, again, you take my mom and dad out of it, Houston Fancher, Buzz Peterson are an unbelievable influence on my life, not just basketball, but my life. So learned so much from both. Was a privilege for me to spend basically my first decade in coaching under the two guys that I played for.
In your mind, what makes, I don't even know if a good recruiter is good enough. What makes a great recruiter from your seat?
Well, I think you always start with the work ethic. I mean, you just have to be relentless in the recruiting. You have to be able to create and build genuine relationships. But then there's that evaluation piece that I think can be a great separator in the recruiting world. And sometimes hard to describe, but you know it when you see it. Mm-hmm. And you're just always trying to search and find the players that possess those traits that you think lead to winning, and you think to lead to players getting better and maximizing their opportunities. So I think just outworking the competition is certainly a big key. But then I think there has to be a skill set there to knowing what you're evaluating, knowing what or who best fits you and your coaching style and the culture that you want for your program. I think sometimes as coaches, we think we can just go out and get anybody and make them fit in your program, in your culture, in your locker room. And I don't think that's always the case.
Can you make a recruiter, or are recruiters born?
That's a great question. I really don't know. I do think they could be made, because you see some of these elite coaches, some of the best coaches of all time, weren't necessarily an NBA player or the best player in college. Some weren't even the best player on their high school team, for example. But they had a passion and a love for the game and the profession and the recruiting that they developed into the best in the world. So I think they can certainly be made. But I do think personality is a big part of it. There has to be a certain charisma there and a love for people. Ultimately, you're going to be told no a lot more than you're told yes.
Yeah.
And so how you respond to that will impact how good a recruiter you can be.
Coach Peterson on the move again in 09-10 season, goes to North Carolina, or 10-11, I guess, goes to North Carolina, Wilmington, takes you with him. You've spent a whole lot of years there in the mountains, and now you're going to the beach. What was your year in Wilmington like?
Oh, it was awesome. That's a great place. We lived 5 minutes from Wrightsville Beach. Passionate fan base. Basketball is the top dog there at UNC Wilmington. And also a lot of life changes have happened at this point. Now married. Have Maris, who was born there in Boone, North Carolina, while we were at App State. And number 2 is on the way. Mason ends up being born there in Wilmington, North Carolina. So it was great. It was a major rebuilding job at the time. But again, I think at this point, I'm getting to a spot, and from a career standpoint, where I love Buzz Peterson. I love Houston Fancher. I love my time playing for them. I love my time coaching under them. They've been incredibly good to me. It's time to see another way of doing things. I wasn't one of these coaches who started off bouncing around, new job every year. Those were my guys. That's what I learned under. And I think right there around 2010 is when I'm starting to get a mindset where it's time to learn a new way of doing things. It's time to improve and learn new systems and new recruiting processes and go out and find a new way.
May of 2011, Steve Prohm takes over at Murray State. And I guess before we get to the phone call that changed everything, when do you remember, and maybe you don't, but is there any moment you remember meeting him, or just in terms of your relationship with him, of just being somebody else out on the road that you'd bump into?
Yeah, we had a mutual friend, Kerry Keating, who was an assistant coach when I was a player at Appalachian State. Ended up being assistant at UCLA on all their Final Four teams with Russell Westbrook and Kevin Love, and then was I believe a 9 or 10 year head coach at Santa Clara. Steve had worked when he was a manager at Alabama. Kerry was an assistant at Vanderbilt, and Steve had worked his camps. So all this was back in the, I guess, mid 90s. And when I first got into coaching, Steve was first getting into coaching, and Kerry connected us, and we just built a friendship over the next decade. Seeing each other at recruiting events, the brutal scheduling calls that you have to make every year, and so we got to be good friends over that decade, and kind of came into the business around the same time.
So he calls you, as the story goes, he calls you looking for some assistance, some recommendations for an assistant, and you suggested yourself.
He did. He asked me about a couple guys, and I told him, well, Steve, I'd love the opportunity to sit down and come work for you at Murray State. I knew about the great tradition there at Murray State. I think I've told you before, my godfather was on the 1955 Murray State team way back in the day. He used to tell me I averaged 20 a game, and then I got there as an assistant, got the stat book out. I think he scored 9 points that year, Jim Carter. But I just had such great respect for Coach Prohm and the Murray State program that I was looking for an opportunity like that, and was so thankful that he gave me that chance.
Do you remember I guess how did you get the job? Did you roll into Murray? Is this one of those just phone call deals, or you kind of roll into campus and ambush them? How did the deal get done?
It started on phone calls, but the other thing you got to realize now at this point, married, 2 kids,
also true, yeah,
living by the beach,
right.
Going to pick up and move to a place. I really had no idea until I got there how far west Murray State was. I didn't realize it was about as far west in Kentucky as you could go. So actually, I flew out. I flew out to Nashville and rented a car and went and spent a day with Coach Prohm, and he was awesome. Just kind of laid out his vision for what he wanted the program to be, and I was all in. And when he gave me the opportunity to join him, I jumped at it.
That first season, obviously, the story that will never be forgotten in Murray, Kentucky. You guys go 31-2 that year, and start the year 23-0, and you're ranked in the top 10 in the country, which, in any school in the country is a big deal. Certainly in Murray, Kentucky, it was a whole another level thing. What was the maybe the biggest takeaway for you that you can apply forever, just in terms of dealing with success, unprecedented success, unprecedented eyeballs, all of that, just and trying to keep the focus on today as much as anything?
Well, there was a lot learned that year for me. And you have to remember, this is my first year outside of my coaching tree and seeing things done a different way. I think, and I stand by it, as still one of the all-time great coaching jobs by Coach Prohm in college basketball history. People think it just happened, right? That team was ready-made. I mean, I believe there are some similarities to the 21-22 team at Murray State. I believe that team was picked 3rd in the OVC. Had lost quite a bit from the previous season, and I learned a lot on the defensive side of the ball, how Coach built his defense there. But then I think Coach Prohm was way ahead of his time. The creativity and the ball screens and the freedom that his players played with, the confidence that they played with, how he built a tight and united team. And then, as you mentioned, when you're 23-0 and college game days at your place, and New York Times and USA Today, just watching Coach Prohm, how he managed that, stayed focused on what mattered the most, and didn't let those things become distractions, was really good for me. But I was living out the dream there. I think I've told you many times, before a college basketball coach, before a college basketball player, diehard college basketball fan. So to be sitting there playing St. Mary's and the Bracket Buster and Dick Vitale's courtside calling the game, and there's 9,000 people in the sold out arena. I mean, I was having the time of my life. It was incredible.
You guys had a great 4-year run there. You win a CIT championship at 14. You were sort of the poster child for the mid-major left at the altar in 2015 when you don't get into the tournament. But then you go, and I know you left for Louisiana Tech. Your friend Eric Conkle, who you work with at Tennessee, as a GA. That part of the equation, obviously, the friendship and the relationship you'd had with him for so long, which was a big piece of it. But we have talked over the years about your assistants and sort of your philosophy of, you go to a place for a few years and it's either time to A, I need to go be an assistant at a bigger place, or B, I need to start, maybe go be a head coach potentially at a lower type of level. Was that playing into your thought process at all at that point? Or was this this is my buddy, this is my guy, and I'm going to go, you're getting a promotion on something, go be an associate head coach, at Louisiana Tech. What was sort of your mind frame at that point?
I think both really factored in there, Jeff, being honest. I mean, you look back at Coach Prohm's record there in those 4 years. I mean, you can look at it, something like 104 and 29. I mean, it's insane. And he hadn't moved on and taken another job, so that was part of the equation. But at the end of the day, it's about relationships. And Eric Conkle's a guy. Not only were we GAs together at Tennessee, but we were roommates. Families had gotten to know each other. I mean, you're talking, he's one of the top coaches in the country. And there's also, Jeff, the realistic part of this, the financial equation. As you're trying to climb the ladder, it was an opportunity to nearly double my salary, making that move to go work for Eric at Louisiana Tech. So all those things factored in, and it was a short stay, but and I'm thankful that it was. But I don't want to say I regret it, but I was really excited about the opportunity to work for Eric Conkle and learn under him, have unbelievable amount of respect for him.
2 weeks after you arrive in Ruston, Steve Prohm, sort of late in the coaching carousel cycle, ends up going to Iowa State. And as the story goes, you're working a camp at La Tech, and your phone starts buzzing with notifications and such that Steve's gone. What do you remember about your just initial, when you look at that phone, what's running through your head?
Well, it was crazy. We were in Eric Conkle basketball camp, and I came in from one of the breaks and checked my phone, and there were tons of messages. I had heard Coach Prohm's name thrown around for Iowa State, but I had no idea, that he was getting the job. So I had a mix of messages. Some asking, "Hey, do you think you could get that job now?" Some were like condolences. "I'm so sorry you left, 2 weeks ago. It's too bad you're not going to be able to get the job now." So it was a mix of everything. And, so at that point, I didn't know. I didn't know if I'd have an opportunity to go back or not. And was just really fortunate that Alan Ward and Dr. Davies called me that day and asked me to come in and interview. And so Eric Conkle was unbelievable. He's like, whatever we got to do to help you get this job, we got to do. So I didn't have a car at the time. So I got a one-way rental car, threw all my stuff in it, and drove back to Murray, Kentucky to interview the next day with Alan and Dr. Davies.
Did you have to put any feelers out, or did Alan call you first before you were able to make any calls up to Murray trying to sniff around a little bit?
It happened fast.
Yeah.
I don't remember all the details, but no, they had called me and said they would like to interview me the next day, and of course I was really excited about that. I don't know which direction it's going to go, but again, you need somebody. I mean, I think at this point I've maybe been an assistant for 15 years, and you need somebody to believe in, and somebody who thinks you're the right guy for their job, or right person for their job. And I was really fortunate after meeting with Alan and Dr. Davies that they gave me the opportunity to return to Murray State and take over as a first-time head coach.
Remember anything about the interview? Did you feel prepared for the interview, or I'm sure you've got a 10-hour drive or whatever from Louisiana, but I'm sure that's all that's going, trying to make sure you can put your best foot forward in there.
I think so. I think in a situation like that, my interview had been the 4 years working there.
Yeah.
And this was just to talk some philosophy and what would stay the same, what might change. I remember some of those conversations, but and I had been preparing for this. I talked about some of the reading and studying film and what did I like the coaches I worked for did, what I didn't like, and you build this plan, and you've got your 100-page book that details all these things, and then you get the job, and it's like that old Mike Tyson quote, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. And maybe that offensive system you love doesn't fit the personnel you have, or whatever it might be, and you have to learn to adjust on the fly. But I felt prepared. I thought the biggest challenge, Jeff, everyone always asks, what's it like moving over those 18 inches on the bench and calling timeouts and drawing up plays? I'd been really lucky, in my time working for Buzz Peterson, Houston Fancher, Steve Prohm. All three gave their assistants responsibility, allowed you to be a well-rounded coach. You did all those things in practice. I thought the biggest challenge was coaching the coaches, is building a staff and then getting everyone on the same page, speaking the same language, using the same terminology. You have your staff, and everybody on the staff can coach. Everyone knows how to run their shell drill and what offenses they like, but now you all have to teach it the exact same way.
Right.
And you have to be consistent in your messaging. And that is a tiresome, tedious, detailed process that as a first-time head coach was a bit overwhelming to me.
Any memories of press conference day?
It happened so fast.
Yeah.
I don't even remember. I think I just jotted down some notes that morning.
Because Mary and the kids were still there. I mean, they hadn't so much as packed up to leave yet, right?
That was a blessing. There are a lot of things, regardless of what you believe, that really lined up well for us on that. I mean, I had been down in Ruston, Louisiana for 2 weeks. They never packed a box. We never looked at anywhere to live for whatever reason. I turned in my Murray State courtesy car. They didn't have courtesy cars at Louisiana Tech. I never looked to buy a car. I was just bumming a ride every day. We were living at this condo on a golf course. And, as luck would have it, got that call back and the opportunity to return to Murray. Just an incredible blessing. But No, I think just, making that phone call to mom and dad, letting them know, it still makes you a little emotional now thinking about it. To your brothers and sister, all the messages that you get from former players. There was a lot of people. I had only been there 4 years, but people like Larry and Susan Suter, and just people who were incredibly kind to me. Just that, I guess, celebration of getting an opportunity like that it's all about the people. That's what I remember the most.
Last question to get you out of here. What is your best piece of advice that you can give to that 22-year-old college graduate, wants to get in the game, not sure how I want to do it? Maybe one day I know I want to be able to lead my own Division I program. And knowing that this is not an overnight thing, could take a couple decades to get there. But what is the best piece of advice you can give?
It'd be a long answer. I'm still trying to learn myself, but I think invest in people, invest more time, more energy, more effort, more care in genuine relationships with people. Outwork the competition. Whatever you want to be great at, you have to outwork the competition. But at the end of the day, I think it's all about the people, and that's what Coach Peterson told me when I first told him I wanted to get into coaching. He said, "I'll tell you the same thing Dean Smith told me. Are you willing to get on a plane and go to Idaho or Montana and take a coaching job? Are you willing to sleep in the office at night to get to where you want to go?" And if the answer is yes, it's a great profession to get into. If the answer is no, you won't make it very long in this business. So, and then the final piece is just that for me, and I know you and I've talked about a lot, is just joy. I mean, this is once in a lifetime. It was once in a lifetime for me to get to be the head coach at Murray State. I mean, it's an amazing place, amazing people, incredible tradition, history. Just I was there 11 years, and the impact on me and my family will carry on forever for me. And now here I am sitting here talking to you. I've got these 3 letters LSU on my chest. I can't believe it. I really can't. I mean, I was 12 years old sitting in Thompson-Boling Arena with my dad watching Chris Jackson score 49 points for Dale Brown's LSU team with Shaquille O'Neal and Stanley Roberts on it. And now here I am getting to coach here. And that's an amazing part of the journey. It's just 27 years to get here. But just to enjoy the people you get to meet along the way. At the end of the day, that's what I'll always take away from coaching. Whether I get to do it for another year or another 20, it's all the relationships that have been built from former players, their families, the coaches I got to work for and with. That's what it's all about.